CCW, in collaboration with Sir Gangaram Hospital, conducted its first ADHD conclave in year 2019, and here we are back again with our second ADHD conclave in 2022 with the theme Comprehensive Management, Key to Successful Outcome, and I welcome you all here once again. I would like to begin today's event by inviting Dr. Deepak Gupta, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist, the founder and director of CCW, as well as senior consultant at Sir Gangaram Hospital. Trained at the Maud's King's College, London, Dr. Deepak is amongst the few leading specialists in India in child and adolescent psychiatry and has worked with more than 15,000 child and adolescent cases. He is also the chairperson of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Committee of the Indian Association of Psychiatry Private Practice. His special area of interest lies in ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, as well as psychological trauma. Dr. Gupta is also an EMDR trained therapist and EMDR Level 1 trainer. He has authored various chapters in several books as well as has various national and international publications. So inviting Dr. Deepak Gupta for the welcome address for the country.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone for coming this Saturday afternoon. It's always great and very, very heart satisfying to do such programs. And being a clinician, when me and my team organize such event, I feel really, really good that we are able to reach to the community and work with the community. So, ADHD Conclave. Long back, we used to think about that child psychiatry is a rare specialty. Then when we started working, when I came back almost 2 decades back from London, we were thinking about how to penetrate to the community, how to start working. 2 decades down the lane, still a lot of awareness is required, but I can see a change in the last 2 decades. It has been a very fruitful journey for me in the last 2 decades, working with so many stakeholders. I was sharing with ma'am. मैम was asking me, मुझे क्यों बुलाया है? मुझे क्यों चीफ गेस्ट बनाया? तो मैंने मैम को एक ही जवाब दिया. We have to work across all the stakeholders. It's not that we have to get limited to just a clinical practice or just with clinical psychologists. We have to work with the stakeholders who really work with this population at the ground level. In a class of 40-45, we have at least 2 to 3 children with ADHD. We know that. Now, if we are able to identify them early, we are nipping at the bud. We are able to identify 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, even before they go on to medication. We are able to have more productive outcome. That's what is it. So when we are talking about ADHD, we are not talking about medications. We are talking about understanding a child with ADHD. We have to do a comprehensive assessment. So make sure that we are able to strike at the right levels. ADHD is like a spectrum, mild, moderate, severe. Now it's not that every child requires medication, but a lot of people, a lot of children can be prevented to go on medication. But if they are caught early, हम सोचते हैं शैतान है, उद्यमी है, परेशान करते रहते हैं, जानबूझ से करते हैं, इनको मजा आता है. ऐसा नहीं होता. मेरे पास जब पेरेंट्स ये लेके आते तो मैं कहता हूँ क्या इसको एक्स्ट्रा चॉकलेट मिल जाएगी या किसको एक्स्ट्रा प्रॉपर्टी मिल जाएगी? नहीं, उनका ब्रेन रेगुलेट ही नहीं कर पाता. And that's where it comes. जो मुन्ना भाई MBBS में यूज किया था केमिकल लोचा, chemical imbalance, वो हो जाता है. And that's where we need to. And there's multiple non-pharmacological and pharmacological interventions out there, through which we can modulate the brain and the brain processing. As it is said in the whole narrative, the processing, सारा खेल उस processing का है, उस hardware का है. If we are able to build right connections at the right time, we are able to regulate the child's connectivity, we are able to enhance the productivity. So with this conclave, the first conclave theme was working with the stakeholders and partnership. It was partnership and collaboration. That was the first theme. So we thought of, after COVID, let's go for the second theme as a comprehensive management. And that is what is key to successful outcome. It is not only we have to work only with parents. So सब एक सिस्टम दूसरे सिस्टम को बोलता रहता है कि पेरेंट्स की जिम्मेदारी है. नहीं, हम सबकी जिम्मेदारी है. Parents have their own responsibility. Teachers in school have their own responsibility. Plus simultaneously we have to work with the child also. So it has to be a comprehensive. We just can't only put the burden on the parent. Yes, I do agree. Parents have a big responsibility, but not the responsibility. So, with these few words, I look forward to this conclave. My colleague, Dr. Nevalita is there. We have a panel discussion on various controversial topics. We'll try to, with this conclave, we'll try to burst some of the myths and misconceptions which we have for various aspects, including medications and other alternatives, interventions. Dr. Salyoni will be moderating with us. And I'm really thankful to Dr. Ruchi Seth and Dr. Vishal Chawda for accepting the honor and being here from the busy time. I know it's for a principal, it's always difficult to leave the school. And for a clinician like Dr. Vishal Chawda, senior consultant at Fortis, it's always difficult to leave the private practice. So thank you both of them. I'm sure with their wisdom words, we will be able to learn a few things more efficient, more in this coming conclave. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone. God bless us.
Thank you, Dr. Deepak, for the welcome note and helping us understand the theme of this year's conclave. I would now like to invite our chief guest, Dr. Ruchi Seth, and our guest of honor, Dr. Vishal Chawda, as well as Dr. Deepak, for lighting the lamp and inaugurating the ADHD conclave of 2022. Additionally, there are a lot of treatment options available, and if provided in a comprehensive way at the right time, the biopsychosocial approaches can help in having a successful outcome for these children. So with this vision in mind, I would like to invite Dr. Deepak for his academic talk, wherein he'll help us burst the myths regarding ADHD and disseminate the facts about the same. His topic for the academic talk is Understanding ADHD.
Understanding ADHD latest trends. Dr. Vishal did talk about that, how ADHD is prevalent across children and adolescents and adults, and how ADHD, if not treated, how it can lead to various challenges, not only poor school performance, and the most important thing which is talked about, and which very concerns me, is chronic low self-esteem. अगर आप इंसान का उसका सम्मान ही ले लो, उसकी इज्जत ले लो, उसका मान ही ले लो, तो कैसे जिंदगी में सिर उठा के जिएगा? सबसे बड़ी चीज है. So that's one of the things, and that is one of the roots, one of the starting point of depression and other various psychiatric and psychological issues, including relationship challenges. It's not only ADHD which causes relationship issues, it's various other aspects associated with ADHD which leads to various relationship problems, including marital conflict and family conflict. With this, I'll be talking about understanding ADHD latest trends. Let's start with small vignette. I always start my presentation with this 4-year-old case vignette because more and more young cases, children are coming to us with ADHD. 4-year-old nursery student cannot sit still in class, moves in the class, talks a lot, disturbs other children in the class, difficult to wait for his turn, highly distractible, but he's a bright kid. I remember my old days in Xavier's. So a very this sort of thing. Yes. So that's what. And they're very bright. But the thing is that they cannot be contained in that classroom setting. And if they're contained, they cannot be sustained. You will be able to contain them for a few minutes, they finish their work, and then what? 10 minutes down the lane, 35-40 minutes period, kya karaoge? Coming to this adolescent, 14-year-old student, 10 years have gone off. Passing marks, easily distractible, poor concentration, disorganized, careless mistakes. उसको पूरा मैथ्स का चैप्टर आता है, लेकिन प्लस माइनस आगे पीछे लगा देता, नंबर नहीं आ पाते. टाइमिंग सही नहीं है. उसे पता है ब्रेक क्या है, गियर क्या, एक्सीलेटर क्या है, बस किस वक्त पे क्या दबाना है, वहाँ प्रॉब्लम है. सारा खेल टाइमिंग का ADHD में. That is where what is called as executive functioning. What is executive functioning? Right timing at the right moment. That is what is it. Fidgety, cannot wait for his turn, anger outburst, moody, and that's what the adolescent spills over. आदमी की का काम. So आदमी की काम. So ADHD and adolescent is a deadly cocktail. Can be a cocktail also, but yes, problem with friends, low self-esteem, and with paths to overactivity. What is ADHD? Is ADHD a psychological problem, psychiatric disorder, behavioral disorder, family problem, social problem? Is it an ecological failure? People who have read 1979, Bronfenner. People who have read it? Yeah, ecological. Bronfenner. I always have difficulty to pronounce his name. Yeah, 1979. How it talks about the ecological system, how the ecological system with child at the center. So people say, is it a failure of that? That's why having ADHD. So ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. Correct? The latest classification says that it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, NDD. That is what is it. And why it was put into NDD was that there's a biological basis, what Dr. Vishal also was trying to emphasize. And when you tell to the parents, and I always give the example of Munna by MBBS, that chemical imbalance or chemical locha, that it is not your fault. Lot of parents will come to me with lot of guilt, lot of blame, pitying themselves, कि मेरी वजह से हो गया, मेरी मदर इन लॉ कहती हैं तूने अच्छी तरह नहीं पाला इसको, तेरे में कमी है, हस्बैंड भी मुझे कहते हैं you're not good, you're not able to control him. That's what. So that's why when you put it as a neurodevelopmental disorder, you're able to say that it is a developmental neurodevelopmental disorder. Something is happening in the brain. What is happening in the brain will come in the next few slides. It's because of that there is inappropriate and impairing levels of overactivity, inattention, impulsivity. थोड़ी बहुत impulsivity, attention span issues and overactivity सब में होती है, but it is inappropriate and impairing. It is across the various settings. घर में भी, school में भी, घर में भी, and in neighborhood also with peer relationship. It is not only in one situation. That's very, very important. The prevalence, as Dr. Vishal said about it, that it varies across various studies. But yes, 5 to 10%, and around by the time it spills over to adults, it becomes a 2 to 3%. In a class of 40-45, 2 to 3 children are there. That's what is there. It begins in childhood. Yes, it begins in childhood. You don't get ADHD something like 20-25 years of age. No. It would have had roots at something in 4, 5, 6 years of age. If you go back to the history. So taking a history in this field is very, very important, and understanding a comprehensive longitudinal perspective is very, very important. So it begins in childhood, and up to 60% of such children continue to be symptomatic in adult life. That is thing is that. So lot of people continue. They may not be having a full ADHD diagnosis, but by the time they come to adolescence and adulthood, they may be having subsyndromal symptoms. हाथी मर जाता है, पूछ रह जाती है, वही पूछ तंग करती रहती है. That's what. So वो थोड़े बहुत तो सब syndromal symptoms होते हैं ना. That's why they're not able to focus, they get distracted, they're not able to complete, they get impulsive sometimes, and that is where the trouble comes up. A growing body of evidence supports that multiple biological, environmental, psychosocial factors interact during early development to create this neurobiological susceptibility. So it's not only biological, it's not only genes. Genes along with environmental and psychosocial factors contribute, and that is what the latest theory is coming out, epigenetics, which says. So how the biological factors are modulated by the environmental factor or psychosocial factors, which leads to flaring of the ADHD symptomatology. So these are the cores of ADHD. Cores: inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity. That's what. Girls mostly have inattention issues. That's what. And the boys mostly have hyperactivity issues. As they grow up and come into pre-adolescent and adolescence, this hyperactivity part starts settling down. And inattention and impulsivity goes on. Along with adolescence, so that becomes a deadly combination. And the substance abuse, high risk, promiscuous behaviors, taking, all those things starts happening. And with technology at your hand, you can do anything in the world. That is what happens. जब तक आप सोचते हो तब तक आप कर चुके होते हैं, वो है ADHD. जब तक पता चलता है तब तक धमाका हो चुका होता है. That's what. That is what ADHD is. That's where. So this is a new classification which came in 2013. We have one more classification which came just here initially also, and it's a big thing is that. So I don't want to go into the details of it, but the basic thing is that there is a persistent pattern. What I want to emphasize is that a persistent pattern of inattention and hyperactivity. That is very, very important. And DSM-3, the American Psychiatric Association in 2013, when they came with the classification, they made a very, very big and bold change. The bold change was that before the age of 12 years, you can make a diagnosis. People start making a lot of controversy about it, that it means you are over-diagnosing. You will end up in over-diagnosing. But what was their point was that when the child is 6-7 years, you are not able to pinpoint the challenges a lot of times unless they come to the education system. Once they come to the education system, especially girls with ADD issues, when they're 8-9 years in class grade 3 and 4, that is the time you are able to identify that they have real difficulties. That is why this age was shifted to 12 years. And almost 9 years down the lane, people have accepted it was a good move. It was a good move. It's better to have false positive a lot of times rather than false negative. And after you have a false positive, you can screen them and then be judicious and ethical in your right interventions. And also important is that it should be present in more than 2 or more settings. That is important. So persistence of inattention hyperactivity, less than 12 years of age, at least 2 or more settings, and impact in the social, academic and occupational function. So symptomatology, persistence and dysfunction. These 3 are important and before the age of 12 years. Then, and these are multiple, like as what Vishal was talking about, the criteria are there. Multiple criteria are there. Out of 9, the 6 should be there. You can just download the checklist, are there available on the Google. You can easily download them. I don't want to go because I want to cover other aspects also. So inattention, out of 9, 6 is there. But the gist is that the child gets distracted easily, and because of that, he is not able to pay attention to the small things. And because of that, he ends up making a lot of careless mistakes. And when teachers and parents call that particular child, it looks like as if lost or daydreaming or here and there. So he's everywhere but nowhere, which I always say. उनको सब सुनाई दे रहा होता है, लेकिन ऐसे लगता है वो कहीं भी नहीं है. That's what happens. That's what. And they're disorganized, losing their stuff, as Iti mentioned in the poem, in the narration, this thing, losing their stuff, disorganized, tiffin, pencil box, pencils, tie, belt, except mobile सब कुछ खोता रहता है. मोबाइल नहीं खोता, मुझे आज तक समझ नहीं आया. तो बाकी सब चीज खो जाती है. So that is what
Bluetooth होता है.
Yeah. I think the criteria will be modified.
Mobile finds them.
Yeah. In the next coming year, the criteria will get modified. So except only 1 or 2 child parents have told me that mobile get lost. The rest never have heard that mobile get lost. So this is the thing. Yeah. So coming to the hyperactivity, the gist is again they are restless, they are very fidgety, they cannot stay at one place, they keep on moving in the class, especially smaller children. As they grow into adolescence, they become more fidgety, restless, squirming, disturbing the class, talking, dropping pencils here and there, looking outside the window, passing some comments, and that's what happens. And very impulsive. Cannot wait for the turn, keep on, poking the nose in between, that's what happens. So this is what is the profile of hyperactivity. Now these are 3 common presentations which is in DSM-5, 2013. Predominantly inattentive, which is more common in girls, mostly inattentive daydreamers. And this is the population which is usually missed. अक्सर हम hyperactive चंचल उद्यमी बच्चे को तो पहचान लेते हैं, लेकिन inattentive daydreamers, ADD girls को नहीं पहचान पाते. और जब तक वो मेरे पास आती हैं, तब तो 15, 16, 17 साल की हो जाती हैं. I always quote this example of a very good close friend of mine whose daughter had just मेरी एज के उसके बैचमेट्स, and उसकी daughter अभी अभी first year में गई है. She has gone to Leeds, and she pleaded. She pleaded. Both the parents are doctors, radiologist and the hotel and this hospital management. Pleaded their parents that please make me talk to Dr. Gupta. मुझे अंकल बोलती है, मुझे उनसे मिलवाइए. They were not convinced. मुझे इतना उनको बोलना पड़ा, समझाना पड़ा. 9th, 10th, 11th में मुझे enrolled करना पड़ा. Finally 12th में उसकी दवाई करी, and finally she passed from one of the esteemed schools in Delhi, and she went happily. She went to depression, low self-esteem. Nobody understands me. She used to come. मेरे रूम में आती थी, जीके में आती, जमीन पे बैठ जाती थी मेरे सामने. आधा पौना घंटा में से बैठे बातें करते थे. And then she used to say, चलो मैं जाऊँ. मैंने कहा जाऊँ. And that's what she used to struggle. And see, she used to say that it is not in my hand. I don't want to procrastinate, but I can't stop myself. I want to finish my work. I want to clear my SATs and other things and get good score, good Cambridge score, but I can't help. I can't focus. I get distracted so much. That's what ADD is. Attention deficit disorder. And then we have a hyperactive subtype where it's more common in boys, and the combined where both are there. Both are there. And this is the most challenging, the combined ones. This is the one mostly who ends up in medication. It's mostly ends up in it. These two depends on the severity. Again, mild, we avoid, moderate to severe, we put them on medication. And Dr. Vishal is absolutely right. When they come to the clinical presentations, they don't come with mild. Now, because I'm a child psychiatrist and I work only with children, so I see a lot of mild cases also. Because people come to me with various, they come to other things and other things comes up and they say कि सर मेरी बेटी को भी कुछ दिक्कत है, मैं कहता हूँ इसको तो mild ADHD है, let's start working on the child, इसको दवाई नहीं चाहिए तो काम करते हैं. कल ही मेरे कमरे का she comes for a 3-year-old, her own son who has autism, they are from Raipur, a very affluent family, and जाते थे मुझे सर आपसे एक मिनट बात करनी, मैंने क्या होगा सर इसका भी कुछ करो, मैंने कहा इसको क्या बड़ी प्यारी सी बच्ची है, ये सर ये बहुत डिस्ट्रैक्ट होती है, ये होती है, वो होती है, ये होती है, वो होती है, मैं कहा ठीक है इसको असेस करते हैं, that's what. So you see how the people come to me because I am working in this particular thing, but when they can go to only the clinical practitioners, mostly they go with moderate to severe this sometime, and that's where they end up on medication. Now, something new came up in 2022, the ICD-11. And ICD-11 has slightly different criteria, but mostly similar to DSM-5. But what they have removed the age part of 12 years. That is not there. Rest all the criteria are there. 6 months is always there, and all the impact should be there. Interference should be there. More than one setting should be there. So 2 big changes which has happened: the age, and out of 9, 6 should not be there. So they are not very rigid in that way. And from 3 presentations, they have made it to 5 presentations. Inattentive, hyperactive, impulsive, combined, other specified and unspecified. This is usually which you see in ICD this thing. I mean, what does the last two means? If you are not able to fulfill the criteria, and few features are there, which usually happens in your clinical practice. You know the child does not fulfill the ADHD criteria, but he has difficulties, which I always call it subsyndrome. Few features are there, but those few features are causing problem. That's what. So they will fulfill in these things in the last 2 months. Now, let me move forward to what causes ADHD. As I was talking about epigenetics, biological, environmental, and psychosocial. This is a lovely slide which has been put by my colleague Dr. Nebunita in this presentation. She has worked hard along with me in this, both the presentations. Yeah. So that's what is there. So coming to the out of these 3, the biological, psychological, this environmental and psychosocial, let me address one by one briefly. I will not be talking about everything. I will be talking about the latest trends, as my presentation says. So that's what I will be talking about. Now comes the biological, the genetic factors, neurophysiology, neuroanatomy, and neurochemistry, multiple. What I want to emphasize on the genetic studies, ADHD is a very strong genetic coding. Heritability about 60 to 90%. And when you see children with ADHD, if you ask their father, their mama, or their chacha, these 3 are the most common population. कभी-कभी बुआ भी निकल जाती है. So most probably these are 3 most common: चाचा, मामा या father. किसी ना किसी को पीछे से ADHD आ रहा होता है. उसके ऊपर तो कहते हैं पता ही नहीं हो तो कौन सोचता था, किसी को पता ही नहीं था. But that's what. So ADHD has a very, very strong genetic linkage. That means, and if first relative has this, almost 20 to 25% risk. That means if one child has ADHD, the other child almost has 20 to 25% risk of having ADHD. A lot of genes have been identified. Genes means those are the particular genes. If you are able to identify, we say, if you have gene present in your body, you have very high chance of becoming ADHD. But nothing is conclusive. They are polygenic. Lot of genes have been associated with dopamine and norepinephrine. And one gene which specifically outshines in ADHD is about dopamine transmitter gene, which is D2 and D4. And in both of them, it's a D4 dopamine gene, DRD4. So a lot of people are trying to do interventions and identify molecules which can work specifically on DRD4. But अभी तक वो success नहीं मिल पाई है. कि वो specifically DRD4 पे चल रहा है. That precision-based child psychiatry has still yet to come. So it will be almost like a molecular psychiatry where we get DR, tuck, and then the child improves. Still we are far, far away from that thing. And then a lot of genetic syndromes are there which are associated with ADHD. Now this is very important. Though it looks little very biological and scientific, but we have made it very simple. The simple thing in this is that with a lot of new imaging coming like SPECT scan and PET scan, it was found that the regions which are implicated in ADHD, like frontal lobe and basal ganglia, they have low blood flow and hypometabolism. इसका मतलब सच्ची में केमिकल लोचा तो होता है इस ADHD में कुछ ना कुछ. तो इसका मतलब उस पार्ट में the blood flow is less and the metabolism is less. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, please.
So does it mean it's because of this reason that the brain is less stimulated and so the children seek more stimulation?
Could be. One of the things is there. They become more seeker in that way.
Yeah.
One of the things. And that's why we need to push the dopamine. We need to regulate dopamine. And that's why I'll come to very next point slide is there, this one. See, too much of everything and too less of everything is bad. So that right perfect combination of dopamine is required and norepinephrine. So the old theory was that we are only pushing dopamine. No. We are trying to have the right optimal functioning. So like dopamine, norepinephrine are implicated in ADHD. Either extreme is a problem. अगर बिल्कुल नहीं कर दोगे तो you are just dull, drowsy, as if you are in theta wave. I come to the next slide. Correct? So you don't want to make it somebody like in your dull, drowsy or daydreaming. That theta sort of thing. That's important. So appropriate level of dopamine, norepinephrine is required for optimal functioning of PFC. What is PFC? This part of the brain is a PFC, prefrontal cortex. ये बड़े काम की चीज है जो टाइमिंग लगाता है. कब किस वक्त पे कौन सा ब्रेक लगाना है, कब अपने आप को रोकना है. करेक्ट? जब क्रिकेट में कौन से लोग कब किस वक्त पे कौन सी बॉल को छोड़ना है. That's important. So that is where it is there. So this, if you see the graph you see. So this is the drowsy one, this part, and this part is the stressed out, the corner one. This is one we need. Alert. Optimal functioning. Alert. That's it. And that's where this slide explains you. So in EEG, what we find, elevated slow waves like theta. The theta is the one where you're drowsy, daydreaming, that's one. And fast waves are decreased. That's what. So this is what comes up with it. So what I'm trying to say, there's a very strong biological, and these are some of them. And if you see this one, this is a normal EEG one, QEEG. And here what you see in this one, this one of the typical brain map pattern which is seen in child with ADHD. It shows an underactive, the red part, the color one. This is the red one, where theta is becoming predominant. Frontal lobe behind the forehead. So this abnormality, this happens. So people who are working with a brain functioning are trying to regulate, and that's why we'll talk about, my colleague Dr. Revanita will talk about, which is recently coming as PDT, Prescription Digital Therapeutics. Latest, just came before the COVID, and I've got really consolidated in COVID, PDT, Prescription Digital Therapeutics of Prescription Digital Therapies, and two software which have been approved by FDA endeavors, and the other one is the trigeminal one, trigeminal one. Yeah. So these, but in particular age group of 8 to 7 to 12 years of age only. So and these are the basics. And one thing which I want to emphasize is one of my favorite slides. This is my favorite slide. And you will come to know why it is my favorite slide. Because this talks about maturation lag hypothesis. Why people come out of ADHD. And I've seen so difficult ADHD when they came to 11th and 12th, then they came out of ADHD. स्कूल कांपता था उन बच्चों से, कांपता था, आतंकग्रस्त इंडिया को बच्चा. इतनी दवाइयाँ, कॉम्बिनेशन, थेरेपीज करने के बाद भी कैसे उनको 10th और 12th के एग्जाम दिलाए नहीं जानता. कितने लेटर दे के स्कूल को, CBSEs को, and finally, and then they came out of it, and they're doing so well. और कभी मुझे अचानक मिल जाते हैं, कहीं इधर उधर या फोन आ जाता है कि हमें किसी को रेफर करना है, कहता है अंकल पहचाना नहीं मुझे. अच्छा, तो मैं सोचता हूँ, अरे ये वही बच्चा है, my God. And that's where this theory comes from. So research has shown that ADHD children are characterized by non-progressive reduction in grey and white matter in thickness in cortical and cerebral region. So जो cortical thickness की वो जो है वो थोड़ी सी कहीं ना कहीं there's a reduction, and that's why it is called a maturation delay of 2 to 3 years. This theory came in 2007 by Ruby et al. And it took many years for fraternity to accept this theory. Many years. And then they say that children with ADHD are limping behind normal development in a non-progressive fashion by 2 to 3 years. And then what happens? Of clinical interest, the relationship between clinical outcome and delay of cortical thickness is if symptoms are caused by maturation delay, one might expect the patient to catch up in the maturation of the cortical thickness. As they catch up, then they come out of ADHD. So a lot of time what happens when the parents, they stop medication or they get run out of medication, and then when they stop treatment, and after 1 or 2 months they feel, oh, my child is doing well. Now it doesn't require. That's what happens. So that's why they say after 1 year, you should stop medication and give a break, and then see whether the child really requires or not. So usually I stop the medication just before the holidays, around April and May, so I can be able to watch them. And if parents come with good news, that means the brain has caught up. If they don't, otherwise then we have to again another academic year. So children with ADHD who in late adolescence showed normalization of the reduced cortical thickness. So if the cortical thickness starts becoming a normalization, then they have a better clinical outcome that they don't require. Then simple interventions are good enough. That means they have covered up. That's what happens. So this is the maturation lag hypothesis in ADHD. Now this is another work which came with Dr. Eman from California. Very, very highly biological doctor, Dr. Eman. He talks about that there are different types of brain. And he has put into 7 categories. And he says there's one classical ADHD, very inattentive, distractible, and he said there's reduced blood flow in prefrontal cortex, as I was talking about, the SPECT studies, which I was saying about. And there's low dopamine. And they're like a classical ADHD. Correct? And then he said there's another type is where there is reduced activity in prefrontal cortex, but there's more of inattentive type. Then he goes on to type 3, where he says they're over-focused. They're highly focused, over-focused, and they have deficiency of serotonin and dopamine. They have negative thoughts, obsessive, excessive worrying, they have trouble shifting attention, they get over-focused. And from there, he shifts to a type 4, the temporal lobe ADD, who is very, very aggressive. You will some children, they get very aggressive, very destructive. Choti si baat pe they just explode. You know, they just throw things, they become explosive, they're so distinct, irritable, mood instability, mild paranoia, memory problems. All those things are there, all those things are there. So that's what. And there they found it's not only prefrontal cortex, but also the temporal lobe, जो पीछे नीचे वाला part होता है brain का, पीछे और नीचे वाला, that is part is involved. And then they found that along with that, there's another type, where they have low level of sadness, low self-esteem, Dr. Vishal was saying, along with that. And there they found it's a combination of limbic and prefrontal. So you see the difference? So how the little difference is happening. And then he said there's a ring of fire. This excessive activity in cerebral cortex and brain. It's like always on the fire. It's the difference of this, you see, temporal lobe and here. The brain is just firing. Brain is just firing. That's it. This is what is there. And the 7th one is anxious one, which is more time common in the girls, somatic symptoms, and they get more anxious. That's what. That's why one child does not respond, every child does not respond to same medication. That's what he meant by when he talked about this thing, these 7 types. So what he meant was that these first 2 ones are the one which will respond to the one type of medication. He said that these are the one, temporal lobe, limbic, and the ring of fire. One aggressive, irritable, destructive, mood instability, they will respond to different type of medication. And this anxious one, which is of more of ADD type, they will respond to a different type of medication. But हमारे बच्चे में SPECT scan नहीं करा सकते. I still remember one of the child came to me. He said हम एक psychiatrist के पास गए, उसने हमारा 20 साल का SPECT scan करा लिया. दवाई सिर्फ 15 रुपए की ली. क्यों कराया? और वो काम भी नहीं करिए, मैं आपके पास आना पड़ा. So see, so and then again this is research. So we can't do, but these protocols are something which has come up, and gradually they will add on to the biological precision-based mental health practices over the time. Now, moving from this biological perspective, let's hold on to the biological. Let's go something which is environmental factors, which is coming more and more. People are talking more and more, especially in the COVID times. These environmental factors, psychosocial factors have become more and more prominent. Now, people talk about food allergies, refined sugar, refined flour, all these refined carbohydrates, heavy metals, toxins, pollutants. Pollution का हर जगह आज या खबर आई है कि दिल्ली में से pollution बढ़ने वाली है, so be careful. So that's what happens. So pollutants, heavy metals, lead, aluminium, plastics. Plastics almost got praised thanks to the current government that plastic has been banned because they contain what? Very very lethal component, which is called as BPA. Very BPA is very very toxic. तो अभी तो एल्युमिनियम, अभी तो प्लास्टिक तक की खबर है, मतलब gradually it should. Aluminium, all these can lead to, and these are the things which modulates your genetic factors. Thyroid disorders, micronutrient deficiency, one of them is iron. My colleague was talking about, that's the iron. And it has been found out that in Indian population, especially girls, they have iron. Anemia is there, along tiredness and all, but that is one of the reasons of having inattention. Dr. Santosh Pramala, who is Indian origin, who is in IUP Institute of Psychiatry, the Mecca of Psychiatry, and he along with other collaborators did this study on Asian population, and they found that the ferritin levels were very low. You increase the ferritin levels, you find that their attention improves. But in mild cases, not in severe cases. So this is again we have to see. And other factors like metal smoking, alcohol consumption, preterm birth, all these are. Thank you, Dr. Vishal, for your presence. Thank you very much. Yeah. And these all multiple factors leads to ADHD. So one of them I want to highlight something which has come up new later is about the processed food and ADHD. Now ADHD has been associated with unhealthy dietary habits. One of the very classical articles which came up, which became very prominent for 2017 February, an article which came in Journal Pediatrics, which talked about how the Mediterranean diet is so important. Mediterranean diet is something which is rich in omega-3, which has olives, which has fish, which is the vegetables, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, along with exercise. That is Mediterranean diet, and fish. That is it. And the source of fish in Scandinavian countries is those are very good qualities. Those are there and not rich in pollutants and not rich in heavy metals as well. So they came out with this thing. And then they found that ADHD was positively associated with unhealthy dietary habits, including a high consumption of refined sugars, processed food, soft drinks, instant noodles, and low intake of vegetables and fruits. And we have a very strong marketing and advertising background which supports taking of all this stuff. Clear? आज भी पूरे पेज का कैडबरी का डेयरी मिल्क का ऐड है, पूरे पेज का. दैट आपको कहीं से खरीदनी हो, आप डेयरी मिल्क खरीद सकते हो. फुल पेज कितना देखा हुआ है? Anybody seen that ad? Full page ad. Just scan and you will get dairy milk. Consumption may cause hyperactivity. लोग कहते हैं शुगर से hyperactivity क्यों होती है? The reason is that when you take sugar intake, it causes insulin rush. इसको rush बोलते हैं. तो rush happens from the insulin. Insulin कहाँ से आती है? Pancreas से आती है. And then what happens is a hypoglycemia. And then this results in a demand. जैसे मैम ने कहा demand होती है. Demand is supply का खेल है सारा. Epinephrine. And this leads to activation of nervous reactions and hyperactivity disorder. So the sugar, insulin, and then your hypoglycemia, and then epinephrine demand. All this leads to it. Then iron and zinc, which are the cofactors in this whole production of dopamine or epinephrine. So if you don't take a good diet, if you don't take a good healthy diet, then you won't have iron and zinc in your food. That's why even for vegetarian, how to take iron, zinc, nuts, seeds, that's very, very important. So in that way, you're able to prevent your ADHD symptomatology. Also, which has been seen, this thing is that if you have problematic eating behaviors with consumption of highly specific palatable foods in an addiction-like manner, that is also something which is like substance abuse, that almost like addiction of any particular thing, that also has been found with ADHD. So there's multiple emphasis on the diet. So healthy diet, जब मैं लोगों को बोलता हूँ कि आप बाहर कर ये बंद कर दो, ये बंद को कहते हैं हम खाएं क्या, तो हम कहते हैं घर का ताजा बढ़िया अच्छा खाना खिलाइए, that's important. सीजनल खाना खिलाइए, फ्रेश खाना खिलाइए, जो सीजनल खाना फ्रेश फूड से खिलाइए, फ्रूट्स, नट्स, वेजिटेबल्स वो सब खिलाइए. That's why there's a lot of emphasis, across countries also on like 5 portions of vegetables and fruits in a day. That's what. So these things are very, very important, and that's what is seen. So I put it back on the parents and asked them, when you give the sugar, how do you see your child? They said they become very, very overactive. They become more inattentive. That's what happens, and that is where you can put it in. What has also been seen in smaller children, it's more easier to do. For 4-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, it's more easier to do. For adolescents and adults, it's more tough to do, unless they don't have their own responsibility. So, and for smaller children like 4, 5, which are becoming more and more overactive, you can easily work on these dietary habits. Now, other psychosocial factors, maternal exposure to many noxious stimuli, like nicotine and alcohol. So, in pregnancy, if there's any intake of nicotine and alcohol, absolutely that can impact the fetus. Also, it has been seen lower socioeconomic strata may increase exposure to environmental toxins. It is not that living in a lower socioeconomic strata is a problem. It is that when you are living in such conditions, you are more exposed to more environmental toxins. That's what happens. And ADHD can lead to conduct and lead to other juvenile delinquency and other criminal activities. One thing which is very fascinating, which I'll be talking about, is the digital. Lot of studies have come in the last 2-3 years about how digitalization and exposure to digital screen is impacting these children. That's what. And how the brain is getting rewired. Sedentary life habits, increased intake of processed foods, and along with that, the one of the main important factors is family dysfunction and parental psychopathology. Family dysfunction and parental psychopathology does not cause ADHD, but it can add to the fire. It can worsen the situation. It can make the ADHD child go into ODD, oppositional defiance, conduct issues, aggressive, and poor parenting styles. That's where it can hamper the effective implementation of the behavior modification techniques. Now, this is something which I've been talking a lot across all the population, across all the sectors about the digital screen use and ADHD. So, growing body of literature showing increased rate of ADHD with digital screen exposure. Today, children have unprecedented access to media and technology. आज के 1 साल के बच्चे को भी एक्सपोजर है. 1 साल का बच्चा भी स्क्रॉल कर लेता है. एक स्क्रॉल, एंड उनकी उंगलियों में दर्द भी नहीं होता. आप बार-बार स्क्रॉल करते हो, 10 मिनट दर्द होने लगेगा. You will have some little bit tingling out here after some time, few hours. They don't. 15, 16, 18 hours. I don't know how. The first 3 years are very crucial. Critical in child's language, social and cognitive development. Exposing a baby's developing brain to videos may overstimulate it, causing permanent changes in developing neural pathways. This is what is called as rewiring, because there is overstimulation and alteration in the neural pathways. Each hour, this is very important, 2 lines, each hour of screen watched per day at ages 1 to 3 years increases the risk of attention problems such as ADHD by almost 10% at the age of 7 years. And this is what is coming up. And that's why more and more neurodevelopment disorders are getting diagnosed. So limiting young children exposure to screen during the formative years of brain development may reduce the child's subsequent risk of developing ADHD. On the other side, ADHD is associated with sensation seeking, which could promote pursuit of digital media to satisfy the drive. Because the child gets a lot of kick by the visual stimulation, they want to, and that's why they have more and more craving for the digital media. And that's when you see parents will say, when he's in front of the screen, he's highly focused, because he gets constant gratification from the visual thing. He constantly gets a dopamine kick from the visual input, because it's quite fast and quite rapid moving. That's where they have this thing. slide presentation. The one other thing which is also coming, the COVID. We can't ignore COVID. We know definitely people are saying that we are all out of COVID. Some people are saying we don't know what will happen. But that COVID really impacted the ADHD population. There was limited opportunity to physical activity in COVID, which challenged the energy, increased exposure to screen, altered sleep-wake cycle, exposure to the family dysfunction, non-availability of medication were there. In some pure ADHD children, lockdown-related stresses have resulted in comorbidities like defiance and depression. But in some children, in lockdown, the symptoms of ADHD, they were subdued. But when the school started in the month of April or July, we are seeing again that population coming back to us. And the reason is that during the COVID, the parents were able to give more attention to the child's need and they got more focused. And when the school opened up, again, the things got redistributed here and there. So you see how overall, how so many factors contribute. So from a biological perspective, small brain volume, prefrontal cortex issues, maturation lag, low metabolism and blood flow in prefrontal cortex, dopamine norepinephrine alteration, slow waves like theta and delta and prefrontal cortex, genes, environmental and psychosocial factors including food, processed foods, and media and screen digital. All this leads to what is called as ADHD. So it's not one single factor, and that is where the epigenetics comes. लोग कहते हैं क्यों ADHD हुआ? Reasons हैं, सारे reasons हैं. किसी में कोई होगा, किसी में कोई होगा. So ADHD has a reason. It is not like that it's just happening. There's a clear-cut reason. And I tell to parents, if you really want to know, read about epigenetics. If you really want to know, understand how environmental factors can add on to the genetic factors and leads to ADHD symptomatology. There is some of the new medication which has come up. It's still the pipeline because it's my presentation is latest trends. I just wanted to very briefly, I will not spend much time. These some of the new medication which is coming up with new technology. How talks about that how in coming years we may have some molecule like viloxazine and other jornapm and other medication which will make it child friendly and help to understand various aspects in children with ADHD. Now these some of the technology thing which is coming up, and my colleague Dr. Negmita will present more about it as I told about the PDTs, but yes, virtual reality and machine learning technology like deep learning applications could be a promising diagnostic tool for ADHD. They can provide stimuli to replace real stimuli and recreate experience with high realism. It can create a playful virtual environment and reduce stress, and several studies are showing that virtual reality can be used as a diagnostic tool. So if we have a right diagnosis, when we know that what is not ADHD, then we can have a better treatment. Lot of friend, with technology in hand, lot of time we get youngsters. He says, "मुझे ADHD है." You have ADHD. From where you came to know, we have done our own diagnosis, and they get biased in telling the symptomatology. Parents say, "सर जो ये कह रहा है वो सही कह रहा होगा, सर आप इसकी बात मान लीजिए." That's what happens. So sometimes we don't have a blood test. Everybody is not open for EEGs and SPECT scans. So that's why gradually we will have this machine learning technology will have a better diagnosis, more precision, able to create a virtual environment that is more enjoyable, and we will have better data than other ordinary neuropsychological tests. So the take-home points is that the ADHD is a brain disorder, neurodevelopmental disorder where genetic factors, pregnancy, and birth complications, nutritional, environmental, and psychosocial factors contribute to the manifestation of symptoms. You see, multiple factors. You just can't blame parents. You can't just only blame system. It's a combination of both. Unfortunately, some school of thought of people who are hardcore geneticists or biologic oriented, they say only it's biological. Some people who are highly psychological oriented or social school of social is believe in that, they believe it's a failure of a social system or psychological issues. But in the end, it's a combination. It's an amalgamation of both of them. That's why I always say it's work in partnership. Just let's not blame one system. That's what important is. Now, children with ADHD are not misbehaving on purpose. वो जानबूझ से तंग नहीं कर सकते माँ बाप को. 4 साल का बच्चा क्यों तंग करेगा अपने माँ बाप? कर सकता है ऐसी बात नहीं, but yes, क्यों करेगा? So that's what is that. So this what I always keep on saying is that, especially in other conditions also, same thing. Like sometimes I have to give example of Tare Jameen Pe other movies. You know, it is not that his brain can't function. His brain can't make the right decision at the right time. I took 2 days back, not 2 days back, Thursday. Son studies in class 7. The mother came to me so happy. She said, मैंने पहले क्यों नहीं ट्रीटमेंट करा? कहते सर, मैं बहुत खुश हूँ. इस बार आपने सही टाइम पे सही शुरू कर दिया. I'm so happy. Even our quality of life has become better. The child has become better, and after the school is very happy. So, lot of times, what was seen for many years is like a misbehave. It is because of ADHD. That doesn't mean you have to overdiagnose. And remember, ADHD is not just a discipline problem or the result of bad parenting. So we have to take out the guilt from the parents, because that guilt leads to depression and the marital conflict and leads to family conflict, and that worsens the ADHD rather than improving the ADHD. Treatment strategies to target underlying neurobiological alterations as well as accompanying environmental and psychosocial stresses are available. ADHD is treatable, not curable, treatable. In the last 25 years, after working with almost 70 to 80,000 children, I have seen ADHD is treatable. And ADHD people can have a lot of successes. Dr. Abhishal has given a big list. And one of the latest successes, Hardik Pandya. So, it's there. So, thank you very much. There's a bright side to ADHD, and that's where all the shiny things are. Thank you very much.